Hi, this is Paul with therapeuticsoul.blog. Just wanted to share some things that worked for me as far as preparing for tests, whether NCLEX or nursing school tests. And when I was in nursing school, I was inspired by my biology teachers to do my own projects, experimental projects, as learning, because I'm a very visual and hands-on person. And what initially inspired me is they had us make in lab, they had us make these simulated lungs where this simulates the diaphragm and how contracting and expanding it aids the lungs in expiration and respiration. And I've got some stuff written there. This one's kind of worn out, and the first one I did. Here's my newer model that I did that works real good. Okay, see those lungs expand? Yeah, look at that. Isn't that great? It even causes the cup to suck in. It works so well. Okay. And so you can play around with this and do some more research on your own and answer all the why questions that are instigated by these little projects. Then another thing that I did with modeling clay, and the clay is like drying out, and I haven't figured out yet how I'm going to glue the glue the pieces of modeling clay together to make like a standalone model. Right now the clay's drying out, so I took pictures of it. So I wanted to get a good picture of the organ anatomy, and single dimensional pictures just don't kind of do it for me. It doesn't show how the organs are actually posterior or anterior to each other, and so on and so forth. So I wanted to do my own research and kind of make my own organ model with modeling clay, and here's what I came up with. And this was really helpful, and I learned a lot of really cool things. Here's the diaphragm and the heart and the lungs, and gallbladder, and then from the back side, I don't have the kidney here yet, but this is the pancreas and the spleen, and I was able to ascertain where the organs actually are. And as a nurse, that's very important. It's the primary goal that I wanted to achieve, is to really get a good grasp on where these organs are in the body. So if I have a patient or resident that says, I got a really sharp pain right here or there, I know what organ is in that area and what it might be. Okay. I was really kind of surprised in doing my research in that the organs really aren't located on the body where I thought they were. Okay, the stomach is much higher than what I thought, and I was really surprised by what I learned. And then you can see the pancreas here, in the spleen. This is I put the little heads up there so you could tell whether you were looking from the posterior view or anterior view. But you can see how on this other picture, okay, I show how it would be the left kidney from behind is posterior to the pancreas, how one kidney is a little bit lower, that is, the right one is a little bit lower than the left one, to make room for the larger part of the liver, so on and so forth. Important stuff. Some thoughts about when I view somebody who has some kind of colostomy, I'm probably going to know what kind it is due to the location of where the utility is located on the body. That was just important for me to know that stuff as a nurse. So that's just another example using modeling clay there that you can do. Okay? So, in studying for chest tubes, okay, I kept forgetting what chamber where you want continuous bubbling, and what we're going to be discussing here is a wet system for a chest tube. And I could never remember whether, okay, in the seal chamber, do you want occasional intermittent bubbling, or is that where you want to see the constant bubbling, or is it in the suction control chamber? All right, and then some things, where are these chambers located and how do they work in relation to each other? Just had a hard time remembering all of that stuff, so I figured, you know what, I'll do my own little experimental project here. So what do we got? Well, first of all, this thing's been sitting around a while. I made it like 3 weeks ago, so I have distilled water in here, okay, which is in a wet system. That's what you're going to have. You're going to have distilled water because, as we know, regular water sitting for a long time has all kinds of buildup. This canister up here simulates the pleural space, and this would be the tube that would be inserted in the pleural space. And up here, you can have something to simulate blood, other kind of fluids, or air, okay, or both is going to be in there. Now, I played around with this and put water in there and played around with it and simulated what would happen when you reposition people to get everything drained out. And it simulated how it works pretty well. And of course, the suction is down here, and I'm going to be breathing in on this straw to simulate the suction machine that is eventually going to suck all that air out of the pleural space. Note that you want the suction chambers below where the chest tube, where it goes in to the pleural space. And I got these two things here to elevate this, and that will help you remember too. So when you have the suction coming this way, it's going to suck air, blood, and fluids this way. And of course, in your collection chamber, all your fluids are going to sink to the bottom and the air is going to keep going out, right? Okay. So, like I said, I kept having trouble remembering what chamber you want to see bubbling in and what chamber that you don't want to see bubbling in. And I can remember it now. I wrote a few facts on the collection chamber. So after the first hour, you don't want to see more than 100 milliliters of bright red blood. Dark red blood, you just document. Bright red blood is a problem. That is more than 100 milliliters after the first hour. If you have more than that in bright red blood, that's going to indicate active bleeding, continual active bleeding. All right, so let's talk about what I learned with this. So here's your suction control chamber, and so the amount of water that's in this is going to determine how much suction you get. So I'm assuming that the less water that you have in this chamber, the more airspace you have, that's going to compete for suction down in the pleural space. Okay? So it's like the straw or the tube is big down here and gets smaller up here, right? So it's going to reduce how much suction you have. But if the water's way up here and you have a smaller airspace, that's going to simulate more of a direct straw or tube that's the same size all the way up. And I would assume that would increase suction. Okay? Another thing I'm not going to get into that I thought about with water being a seal is it's depending on where the direction of the air, water acts as like a diode that only lets the air travel one way. I'm not going to get into all that. What I kind of discovered on my own is water very strangely works in the same way as an electrical diode in that way. So air can come this way, but it can't go that way. Okay? If that makes any sense, and I think I'm right about that. So how am I going to remember from here on out? Okay, well, you want in your suction control chamber, which I simulated here with hot glue, straws, and these canisters I found, you're going to want suction all the time, see? See, the constant bubbling in the suction control chamber tells you that you have suction, and you always want suction, right? Now you notice bubbling down here, all right? Constant bubbling in the water seal chamber you don't want, because that tells you there's an air leak either in the system. Now, they never say this, but I would think that not only could it indicate an air leak in the system, but a constant flow of air getting into the pleural space, right? So they're saying intermittent, a lot of studying you do, occasional bubbling or intermittent bubbling in the water seal is okay. You just don't want a constant bubbling, okay? Now, I would think that the occasional bubbling is when air is being sucked out of the pleural space. If there is air in the, I've never run across anything in my nursing study materials that states this. But the experiment that I'm doing here, to me, would indicate that if there's air in the pleural space, that not long after you begin the suction process, that air should be pretty much gone. Now, one thing that I haven't studied is that the why in regard to this. I got it written here, you can't see it. But tidling, or a slight raising of the water in the water seal chamber, is okay. In fact, you should confirm that it's there. And that will stop when the lungs are fully expanded. Okay? Now, I said that it's a one-way seal, and I'm assuming that the tidling is caused from breathing, or the respirations pushing on the water, and then when you're breathing in, the water settles back down. I think I got that right. Let me see here. Well, I don't have any way to test it going this way. It could be caused a couple of different ways. Let's go up to the pleural space and imagine somebody breathing in, okay, and breathing out, okay. So when a person breathes in, okay, some of the water may actually go up in the tube, right? And then when they exhale, it's going to stop and the water's going to go back down. I don't know if that's causing the tidling, or just the fact that when they exhale, the air coming this way is pushing the water up. At any rate, tidling is okay. That's a question I'm going to have to do further study on. Why does it tidle? Okay, it's okay that it's there. Even look for it. You want it to be there. And I'm not really so sure why it would stop when the lungs are fully expanded. That's another why I want to eventually maybe someday answer for myself, but is not going to be on any test or anything, so it's not a priority at this time other than my curiosity. So, all right, let's demonstrate this whole problem with continual sealing. Continual bubbling in the water seal chamber. Let's demonstrate it. So, you see as I breathe in, and hopefully not too much bacteria because the water sitting in here is distilled, okay, we have a continuous bubbling, and that is going to be indicative of an air leak, okay? So what I'm going to do now, but of course here we want it bubbling all the time, right? Okay, I think you can see that, and I'm not in the way. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to pinch this hose to simulate no air via a leak or air in the pleural space coming this way, okay? Because if you have a leak or constant air getting into the pleural space, you're going to get bubbling in the seal chamber, and that's going to be indicative of an air leak in the person's anatomy, someplace in the body, or an air leak in the system. Now, again, I hope I'm not speaking out of school on a continuous air leak being somehow in that pleural space, causing a constant supply of air in the pleural space. I can't be positive of that being correct, but it seems like that it would be the case in regard or in reference to my little experiment here. So anyway, I'm going to pinch this hose, which is going to simulate no air in the system or the pleural space coming this way. Here we go. No bubbling. Now air leak. See that? See how that works? Okay. Let me try something else. Let me pinch it up here. We're still going to get bubbling because it's pulling air out of the collection chamber. Okay. So there's a lot of whys for me to answer in regard to all this, but one thing for sure, I'm going to remember which chamber is supposed to be bubbling and which one isn't, because I did this hand-on experiment in which I can learn a bunch of other stuff. Another thing that, if I didn't forget, the other thing that I wanted to mention, oh yeah, so, okay, let's say we have an occasional bubbling in here, okay, let's say we have an occasional bubbling, right? Well, that's okay, because I'm going to pinch the hose here, okay. All right, so you run into some air in the pleural space, okay? Oops. Then the air is sucked out and it's not there anymore, so the bubbling stops, right? So, there's the intermittent bubbling is okay. Now, in one video that I watched, they are saying that there may be bubbling in this chamber because the patient coughs or sneezes. That doesn't make much sense to me. What makes sense is that the occasional bubbling in the water seal chamber is from the occasional air it's going to be sucking out of the pleural space. I'll end it there, and I think there's a place you can put comments in the video if you want to. So I'll see you later. And happy nursing.